Hi, this is Kim White with the My Sexy Business team, and I am here today. I am privileged to be here today with someone who is absolutely amazing. Her name is Jenetta Berry, and she has such a precious attitude and such a precious way about her. She's been through some things, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to have a pretty transparent conversation. So, I want to warn anybody who's a little emotional already. You might want to either check off, or you might want to get some Kleenexes because we can't help ourselves when we get to talking. I just want to say that. Welcome, Jenetta, and I cannot wait to get into this conversation today.
I too, I've been looking forward to this, and it's a privilege and it's an honor to be here with you today, Kim. So thank you.
You are so welcome. I want to start off by just framing what we're doing this week because we normally don't concentrate on mental health awareness. We do business, and while I think it's extremely important, that's not usually our focus. So this week, we have been doing a No Shame in My Game, I Love Me Now Selfie challenge, just to disrupt all the different social media platforms with, just to create awareness around the mental health awareness space for May, because it's this month that they target that, but I think it's a year-round thing. One of our friends, Pedro Maciel, he talks about it all the time, and I think it's really important that, well, we are taking a week to do this, a lot, and rallying people around to do this. This is an all the time thing. And and I love that you are able to speak to this year round, Miss Janetta, and I would love for you to tell me what this challenge actually means to you. Like, why did you join me in this?
I'm past master at turning that around and saying, "Why did you invite me to join this?" But I won't do that.
You're welcome to. You are so welcome to. Because I will sing your praises. I will say this.
Oh,
You represent this, this entire challenge that we're doing for 1 week, really taking time off business to do this. That is the thing that I want everybody to know is this is not something that we normally do, and so we wanted it to be really amazing. We have over 45 leaders and influencers in 11 different countries that have done this with us this week, and I can't even tell you how many messages I've had. I've been so overwhelmed with messages. I haven't done a good job of getting back to everybody. It's been so big. So I appreciate that. But the point of the challenge is really to let people know that there's no shame, and you can ask for help if you need it. We want you to post a selfie so that you are, participating in the I love me exactly as I am, as is, unconditionally right now. And I'm going to tell you a funny, just to make a little bit of light for just a second. I am here with no bangs. I burned my bangs off a few days ago, and I wanted to cancel everything that made me, be out in public because I literally burned them off. But this means so much to me that I feel like no bangs, no whatever. I needed to show up. And I know that you do this 365 days a year. You are an advocate in such a huge way for parents and for families. And I just don't even know what else to say because you are the perfect person to help spread this.
oh, sweetheart. If we go back in why I'm that, which is what you're asking me to talk about. I used to be a motivational speaker. and I was pretty good at it. I was one of those people that could get on a stage and the people were fired up and they were going, yes, and off they would go. And then I noticed that after a while they were coming back and saying things like, we need another dose of Jenetta, we need another fix. And I'm going, I'm their drug. This isn't working. They're taking my energy, using it, and almost artificially, because it's not their energy. And when it's used up, they need to come back and get more energy from me. And I've left them with nothing but energy taking. And so I knew I was out of integrity and stepped away. And for some years, I worked on me and my intuition, because after all, CEOs of companies tell you how they use their gut feeling to make their most important decisions. So I knew that that was an important part of being back into integrity with myself. And after a while, I realized that um, I was out of integrity again, because people were coming through and saying, we trust your intuition more than ours. Please tell us what we should do. And I'm going, but that leaves you disempowered still. And it was round about the time that I was re-questioning all this again that I stepped into my greatest life test, because although we'd been working several years with her with this, my 16-year-old daughter, one day we were having an enormous argument. I was putting in safekeeping house rules because she was breaking them left, right, and center. Please excuse me. The dogs have decided out of the whole house and the whole garden that right at my studio door is a marvelous place to play. So excuse me whilst I close the door.
Because my puppies are naughty a lot of times. People that listen to any of my interviews know my puppies do things all the time, so do not worry.
It's about to build up to a crescendo, and you'd have been going, what? What did you say? Didn't hear you. So the studio door is now closed. Dogs can't read that light that says recording, so I try to teach them. Anyway, so back to that day. We had an enormous argument because she was breaking safekeeping house rules. And I just had to put my foot down and say, we can't go on like this. And she got so angry with me and she left in a storm and a rage, said she was leaving home. And after a while, I sensed something wasn't right. And I went to look for her and I found her. I found her in her shower hanging with a broken neck. So you can imagine everything went to ground zero in that moment. Everything got lost. I really, even monetarily, my marriage, my youngest child, we were in a country that allowed a 12-year-old to decide which parent to go and live with. She decided to go and live with her dad. That's another story. I call that a living death. There, just everything. It was like watching a house of cards going dunk. And I wondered how I was ever going to get through that. And to be honest, there were times where I really didn't think I would, really didn't. And prophetically, 9 months after Jenny died, I was walking along the street mindlessly going, what am I doing on this planet? And my purpose is, I really can't think of what is purpose? Who needs purpose? Why purpose? And I knew I had to cross this street. And I got to the pavement edge and went, I better cross. And I mindlessly wove myself through this traffic and got to the middle of the road. And at that point, I realized, hold on, Jenetta, you have choice. You've forgotten you've got choice. You think that the scenario you're in is so permanent that you've been left without choice, but you still have choice. And I carried on weaving through this traffic. How I didn't get hit, I don't know. And I got to the other side and I stepped onto the pavement on the other side. And I realized that I prophetically had crossed over. It was my crossing over moment where I got to that side and went, I can't live like this for the rest of my life, and I choose not to. And that was the choice I was forgetting I had, because everything felt so permanent and so for forever. And I then went on a really difficult mission, but nevertheless, I saw it through to find ways to get through this greatest life test. And I came across the basics of a process. A very wise person showed me this basic way of looking at life. And then I started studying it some more and expanding it and putting some intuition, or a lot of intuition into it, and fine honing. And I got to the point where I knew I had to carry on walking the walk and talking the talk through it before I could ever help anybody else. And that's what I did. And with time, I started going internationally online. I've been internationally online with this process. You can probably see at the bottom of the screen, it's me and the Epiphany process. And it's been the most inspirational time, even though it was darn difficult to get through. And as I grew with this, there were times where it was difficult to move on as an entrepreneur alone. But I just knew that this was such an accurate way of getting through one's greatest life tests, that this was my life purpose. I knew it. And so I've been able to assist people all over the world with this process. I've helped people who are self-harming, who are in bed, not eating properly, writing suicide notes. They're out of bed by the third or the fourth session and starting to interact with themselves before anybody else, because that's what shut down. They've shut their internal conversation down because it's so out of kilter that they don't want to listen to it. So this allows them to start new, balanced, empowered, heart-filled conversations inside themselves, which in turn reflects outside them. They start acting and reacting differently, and people start acting and reacting differently towards them. It's the most amazing thing, and it happens in a nanosecond. Once they get this, they get it.
Wow.
So that's it in a nutshell. I've helped terrorist attack victims. I've helped people through eating disorders. You name it. It's been the most precious journey. So that's it in a really rather large nutshell, but that's it. I've got a little bit of feedback coming through. Can you hear it?
I don't
No.
hear it.
Okay, so it's probably my side, so that's all right. So yeah,
I
there it is.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, and I would love to ask you, how does someone who feels that hopelessness, when my son passed away, it's been almost 20 years now, and he was a teenager. He was killed in a hunting accident. And when that happened, I can remember the next morning waking up and really being mad that the sun had come up, because my world was over, I thought. And
Yeah, how
I
does the world carry on? Yeah.
and so I had to really do a lot of I had to do a lot of things to get through that as well. And I can tell you that it was not easy, and I know that that is definitely something you are saying as well. It is not something that's easy, but you can't stay there. If you stay there, then you're gone too. And I think that that's a big part of
It is. It is. And yet, I'm sure you've come across this too, especially parents and especially mothers. Um, I've been in many closed groups over the years where I always say there's two types of people going through their challenges. There's the one that is comfortable being uncomfortable. And then there's the one that's uncomfortable being uncomfortable. So it could be as a parent that you've lost your definition as being Harry's mother, but now you're dead Harry's mother. And to lose that feels like another grieving process. So you carry on with I'm dead Harry's mother. And then it gets complicated in that a lot of people run the story I have to be miserable and miss my child, otherwise, it means I don't love them.
Mm.
And so they keep on self perpetuating the loss and the misery that, in their perception, reflects how much they love their children. Because if you move on, it means you didn't care enough and you didn't love enough. And you'll get judged as being careless. It's like, how can you move on and have a life after losing one of the most precious things that one could ever love as a parent? And of course, what people don't realize is that when they get past that, because nowhere, I always say to my clients, if you had died, would you have wanted your children and your family to be in utter misery and feel destitute for the rest of their lives so that they can't operate properly? No, wouldn't want that at all. Well, that's where your loved one's sitting in whatever way they're resonating. They wouldn't want you to be in a place of absolute despair. They wouldn't want it. It would make them feel horrible. So it for me, it was understanding that I could fine tune that that connection with Jenny, because science says that energy can't be created or destroyed. So if our loved ones moved on and their energy has reformed into something else because it can't be destroyed, where are they? And that's when I started listening differently and observing differently, and amazing things started to happen that showed that the interaction with what Jenny had become fine-tuned, like a fine radio, a fine-tuned radio. So an example would be 7 months short of 7 days short of 9 months after Jen died, I woke up in the early hours of the morning with a vision, like a lucid vision, of her being 7 years old in her dress, in her tartan dress. And there was chanting music, and I thought, that's my sound system. But when I came to, it disappeared. It was part of my dream. And this is something profound. What does it mean? It's 9 months. In fact, it's a week off 9 months. And she was 7. And something told me, I'd never done numerology before, to start looking at this numerologically. 7 years old, 9 months, 7 days. Then I realized she died at 16, and 1 and 6 in numerology adds up to 7. And then I realized she died in 2005, which adds up to 7. And she was born in 1989, and 1 plus 9 plus 8 plus 9 adds up to 9. And then I realized she was born on the 25th of September, and 2 and 5 is 7, and September is 9. And you add 7 and 9 comes to 16, and 1 and 6 is 7 again. I'm going. Then I stopped again, and I took 10th of October 2005. So 2005 we established is 7, and then 10 plus 10, bring it down to one number, is 2. So now we've got 9. And everything connected to Jen works in 7s and 9s. And when I start getting lots of 7 and 9s, I know I have to stop and listen and observe very, very differently. And the most profound things have come through. So it's understanding that there's new ways of being connected, and that what you were used to has been lost in one form, but it's present in many other forms. And there's actually no loss. It's just shifted into a new way of being, of resonating. When I realized that, it was like, wow. And that's science. I'm not talking woo woo stuff. This is science. It was like, wow, amazing.
Love
So,
that.
yeah,
I love that you are looking for that now. Like I love that you are aware. And you said something earlier about the intuition that we have that I would love to like for you to elaborate a little more on just that particular thing because when we stop trusting ourselves, that is part of the misalignment. I'm not even sure that's the right word, but it's the not being aligned. And when you said that earlier, I thought that's part of the problem when you're grieving or when um you don't know what it is that you're supposed to do. You don't know what's expected. It's like the guilt that's expected if you are happy about something, there's a guilt attached to it because of how much we love them. I mean, I think that was a beautiful example of really the horrible things we do to ourselves. but but would you speak about that intuition? Like, what does it mean to follow that intuition in the grieving process?
yeah. It's very difficult whilst you're in extreme emotion and extreme overthinking. It's almost impossible to fine tune into it. So it is a skill. It's a skill as skillful as learning to read and write
Mm.
or ride a bicycle. And once you learn it, you can't unlearn it, but you do need to practice it. I mean, when you get back on a bike, you can be a bit rusty and a bit wobbly to begin with. And even if you didn't read and write for years and years, you might have to kind of get yourself reattuned to it again. But you never lose how to do it. So the secret here is A, to make the choice, I will learn how to do it. Because whilst you're running the story that there's no choice, you can't learn how to do it. But once you make that choice, it is amazing. This is again in another nutshell how I explain how we do it with my process. We're in a world that's pretty attached to being very positive, and it's almost an addiction. We're told that if we eliminate all negative words, thoughts, and deeds, we will become more accepted and acceptable and loved and lovable. And that negativity is very bad for us. So, guess where a grieving person sits? In extreme negativity. So, they're going, I'm a bad person, I'm a bad person, and they're running all these internal stories, or a depressed person. That's where they sit. So, when you study negative and positive, we're in a world filled with cycles. Everything is cyclical. The noise coming out my mouth right now comes from in decibels of cycles. Um, Brain waves, that's another cycle. Waves of emotion, another cycle. Electricity works in cycles, and if you study a cycle, it requires equal amount of positive and negative charge in it. I mean, after all, you try and take negative charge out of electricity. What happens to it? It doesn't work. Stops working because the two need to oppose and complement each other at the same time in that space. That's called electricity, in that energy, in that cycle that we've learned to harness. Before we were able to harness electricity, it was in extreme. It was extreme positive and extreme negative. And then we found the skills to harness electricity so we could safely bring it into centered manageability so that negative and positive weren't pulling away from each other, and that's dangerous. So we understand that law in so many parts of our lives, and yet we're told our thoughts and our feelings don't apply to that law. We're told we must only be positive. And that's the secret. Because when you realize how valuable the negative side of you is, there are nearly 5,000 human traits listed in the dictionary, and they are human. They're a part of being a human being. Half of them are positive, half of them are negative. So if you're sitting going, I have to eliminate half of who I am, you're living half a lie and half a truth. So life feels incomplete. You're going around going, what's the missing? What is it? It's half of who you are, because you're trying to eliminate half of who you are, and you judge it as being not allowed to be a part of who you are. So you're disempowered. It's like saying to electricity, you're not allowed to have negative charge in you, but carry on operating, will you? And operate even more powerfully when the two of you are together as negative and positive. I want you to be really powerful with just positive charge. Give me double the amount of light on just being positive. And electricity will tell you by its action, well, that's not going to work. And that's what the epiphany process enables one to do. It's taking those traits and learning to see. I'll give you an example. I was able to run a very easy list of all the losses of losing Jen, especially the way I lost her. Because, it's quite a thing when a mother loses a child after an argument like that. So it was easy. I could do it in my sleep and until the cows came home. Everybody could hear it if they were able to sit and listen to it, because it just flowed out of me. This is all the loss, 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 loss. So what I was able to do with a very specific set of questions and techniques is start listing differently how, if Jenny had remained in our lives, a whole list of what wouldn't have worked if she was still with us. What wouldn't have worked and what would have been lost. And the more I committed, and you do it in a very special way and with very specific sections in your life, and you do it again and again, suddenly your list is as long as the list of loss. You're going, this is what wouldn't have worked if she'd stayed. So this is what is working by not having her anymore. And when you have that list, you've got equal amount of positive and negative in that place of balance, looking at each other and going, I recognize you even though we're opposite to each other, instead of pulling away from each other and polarizing. The more you try and be more positive, or the more you try and be more negative from the line of balance, the more you polarize yourself away from center, from balance, but centered balance, the more bipolar we become. So everybody's trying to be this perfect citizen number one in being ultra perfect positively. And what this process enables you to see is just how loved and lovable the negative side of you is, and how valuably important it is for you to be able to feel centered and clear and certain. And when this happens, when you can run those lists on a conscious and an unconscious level, it goes automatically into your unconscious. When you can run that list, there's in that moment, it happens like that, and a person has an epiphany moment. Suddenly there's this sense of grace and acceptance and spontaneous love for the thing or the person or the circumstances or about you that you were previously judging. So I have people sitting there going, I don't feel cross with my uncle anymore. Anger's gone. There's this feeling of he is what he is, and he's on his own journey and I'm off on mine. And it has nothing to do with me, what he says, does, or doesn't say or do. It's his stuff. And they're no longer attached to what he is and isn't and the outcomes. And it happens like that. It's the most amazing thing to watch people doing that. So that's again another large nutshell how I got through it. I can honestly say, as much as loss is there for the rest of my life, I'm not pretending to be Pollyanna and saying, no, no, it doesn't matter that she died or she died that way. It does matter. It does matter. And I have that loss, and I'm sure that's where you sit. I've got that loss from here until probably beyond the day I die. It's a process. Sometimes it's easier than others. When it's not easy, I fortunately have my process to bring it back in. Anniversaries are quite tough. So I'm able to go out and do that. Um, and yeah, and with that, I can honestly say I go, thank you, Jenny, because in you not being here, this is what it's created. That is far bigger than me or Jenny or anything else. And I would have never have known or understood that if she was still around. It's things like that.
I will tell you that that was one of the things that made me cross the street, as you said. It was one of those moments for me, was realizing the gift I was given from my son's death, which I would never choose. No one would ever choose that. But we have an opportunity in it to to see what it is that we can do. This business, this interview, all of this would not have happened, and I am grateful for what the outcome was versus the that happening. And I think that was a big thing for me, is to realize there can be good in it. I can be happy. I can live, and I still do miss him. Like, that is one of the things that like you said, we don't deny that part. And I think that's a really important space for other parents and other, well, really anyone who's struggling with anything, is you need that space to be honest with yourself and honest about that there are things that hurt. There are things that, but we do have that hope in, you know, not staying there. I love the way you said that. So I appreciate you so much.
Oh,
How
well,
can
what you do is amazing.
Oh, well, how can people contact you? Like, how can people reach out to you and follow you and get to know you better, because you're such an amazing woman.
Kim, gee, there's the epiphanyprocess.com website, all one word. Um, we have another thing, which is World Jenny's Day on the 10th of October, because she happened to die on World Mental Health Day. And so we have World Jenny's Day. So I'm contactable through that. Or there's a Facebook group, a Facebook page, World Jenny's Day. There's Jenetta and Barry in the Epiphany Process page. There's my actual Facebook page. You can contact me through there. WhatsApp is fine as well. I know a lot of people in the States don't use WhatsApp, but it's a wonderful way to directly message me if you'd like to reach out. And that's +44. I happen to be in UK. I actually come from Kenya. This is a Kenyan necklace, by the way, a Maasai one. But so I'm in UK at the moment at +44, and it's 777-423-0464, and you can message me. And we'll get back to you soonest. There's a Calendly link page. If you go to Instagram, in the link tree, there you can get hold of the Calendly link page to put the time then. So there are many ways.
I love that you have made yourself so contactable. I know that that's not a word. I think I made that word up, but that's one of the things that I want to promote, people who are actually contactable, so that it's not just, oh, that's nice for somebody up there that's famous, but it's actually someone who, is able to reach out and contact.
Absolutely. I really believe, I mean, there does have to be structure because obviously at 1 o'clock in the morning, I might not be so available, and especially with people all around the world. So the WhatsApp's there. You might not get an immediate response, but you will get a response and you will get to speak with me. And that's very important. Very important. So, I can, this is mutual admiration society. Kim, what you're doing here is profound, and I truly honor and salute you, what you're creating. Thank you.
For saying that. It has been a challenge for me this week, having all the things we normally do be disrupted with this, and I think it's a great disruption. I'm going to say that too. Disruption seems to be a negative word, but again, back to your electricity,
It
it
has
is
both.
doing, yes,
It
it
has
is
both,
very good.
not one side. Absolutely, I love it.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming and being on with me today, and I can't wait to like, of course we will continue to keep connecting because I adore you and I want to stay connected. But I appreciate you so much, and anyone who's listening, please do reach out. You're welcome to reach out to me. I am here. I will say I get a lot of messages, so it is something that takes a little bit longer. So I want to make sure that I put it out there. I don't ignore anyone, but I do have a lot of messages. So I don't want you to hesitate to reach out to any of us doing this challenge. If you need something, if you are struggling, please do reach out, because we don't want anyone to suffer alone, and we don't want anyone to think that they have to be okay all the time. We all have those times when it's okay to not be okay. So, love you guys. We'll see you in the next interview. Bye, Miss Jenetta.